Wrapped in a duvet with her forehead bloodied, Marianna Spring's image appeared to encapsulate the horrors inflicted on civilians in wartime. The photos of her and another woman lying injured on a stretcher were taken after a Russian attack on a hospital in Mariupol. They were plastered on newspaper front pages and across social media. But having survived the bombing at the maternity hospital, Marianna faced another onslaught. Russian officials claimed they hadn't struck an operational hospital, and the 29-year-old was falsely accused of staging those pictures. These claims were promoted on state TV and swirled on pro-Kremlin Telegram channels. Russian diplomats even claimed that she'd played not one, but two different women in the staged photos, something repeated at the UN Security Council. Marianna was safely evacuated from Mariupol to her hometown in the Donbas region, which is controlled by Russian-backed separatists. Friends, family, and Marianna herself say she is safe. She's speaking without any conditions and seems at ease. But a separatist blogger, Denis Selesnov, who helped arrange the interview, is there.
We had a quiet and simple life. And then, of course, things got turned upside down.
Months ago, the beauty blogger and her husband Yuri were happily preparing to have their baby in Mariupol. Then the war started and Marianna was admitted to a maternity hospital in the besieged city. March 9th, Marianna's due date, was the day the hospital was rocked by explosions.
You could hear everything flying around, shrapnel and stuff, and it rang in my ears. The sound was ringing in my ears for a very long time.
Those iconic photos taken by Associated Press were quickly seen all over the world, but not by Marianna until days later.
When I got home, then I saw these photos for myself for the first time, because I couldn't even begin to imagine what the photos were really like.
By that point, her Instagram was inundated with messages and comments telling her that she was acting, that she'd faked it, that she'd been paid to pose for photos. What did it feel like to hear that you were acting?
Of course, it was really offensive to hear that, because I actually lived through it all.
Marianna flat out denies the false claims pushed by Russian officials that she was somehow acting. And the lies and hate didn't stop there. They claimed that the Ukrainian Azov Regiment, a controversial nationalist armed group that's been linked with neo-Nazis, had closed down and occupied the hospital and staged photos. But Marianna rejects that idea. She says the hospital definitely was treating her and other pregnant women, and Ukrainian troops, although nearby, weren't stationed in her ward.
There were none inside of our building. That's to say, they would come by periodically, brought their children and stuff like that.
Once Marianna reached safety, she did an interview with that local blogger, Denis Selesnov. It was unclear how freely she could speak to him. And her comments to him were twisted by Russian state TV. Before, they'd accused her of being an actress. Now they portray her as a reliable witness. For instance, she said she didn't hear or see evidence that the explosions had been caused by an airstrike, which Russia used to suggest it hadn't bombed the hospital. She repeated those comments to me.
Because the typical sound a plane makes when it flies overhead is impossible to miss. And when we heard the explosions, there were no sounds like before the explosion or afterwards.
The journalists that were in Mariupol, they have evidence of this airstrike. What do you think about that?
The thing is, I don't know about this evidence. I haven't seen the evidence.
Evidence of the airstrike includes footage where a plane can be heard, testimony from others there, and munition experts say a crater at the scene could only have been caused by a strike from above. Ultimately, Marianna is one person caught up in this attack. Her testimony alone can't give us the full picture. But in her attempts to share her personal experience, she's been hit by yet more hate from both sides.
In reality, I can't blame anyone, because I didn't see with my eyes for certain where these explosions came from. I received threats that they would come and find me, that I would be killed, that my child would be cut into pieces. I mean, it's scary. It's really scary.
Caught between the weight of seismic political forces, Marianna is a young mother trying to navigate through a hugely complex situation. She doesn't go as far as directly criticising Russia. We can't be sure whether this is to protect herself or whether it's an indication of her own personal views.
I had to defend myself because there was no one else to help, and I had to describe the whole situation as I saw it with my own eyes.
The first casualty when war comes is truth, and that takes with it many other casualties, real people like Marianna, targeted against her will.